Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. 1. Enlightenment requires darkness. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. We speak often of enlightenment as a destination, radiant, peaceful, transcendent. But few understand that the path to that light wins first through darkness. Not the darkness of the world, but the darkness within. The shadow is not evil, it is not your enemy, it is simply what has been hidden. Your pain, your rage, your fear, your unmet needs, your forgotten truths. These are not sins to be punished, but truths to be integrated. They live beneath the surface of your daily life, shaping your choices, whispering in your reactions, distorting your view of others and of yourself. Society teaches us to suppress what is unacceptable. We push down our anger, our shame, our longing to be seen, and instead wear masks of politeness, perfection, performance. But what is denied does not disappear, it festers, it becomes the shadow. True awakening is not a flight from darkness, but a descent into it. It is the courage to turn inward and ask, what have I abandoned within myself? What am I afraid to see? What parts of me have I disowned to be loved, accepted, or safe? This is why I said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light. Light alone cannot save you. Light without shadow is illusion. Light without shadow is blindness. Transformation begins the moment you stop running from yourself, from your wounds, from your contradictions. When you dare to sit in silence with your discomfort, to hold space for your grief, to confess to yourself your envy, your insecurity, your rage, that is the moment the light enters, not because you have fixed yourself, but because you have finally seen yourself. The shadow, when brought into consciousness, becomes your teacher. It no longer sabotages your life from behind the scenes. It becomes a guide, a mirror of what you must reclaim. The fire of your anger becomes passion. The depth of your sadness becomes empathy. The raw truth of your desire becomes direction. To walk into the night is not to be lost. It is to seek the truth with open eyes. And so I ask you, not to flee from your darkness, but to welcome it as the doorway. Enlightenment is not perfection, it is wholeness. And wholeness only comes when you no longer divide yourself into light and dark, good and bad, acceptable and hidden, but become fully, fiercely, unshakably yourself. This is the sacred paradox. Enlightenment requires darkness, and only those who dare to descend can truly rise. 2. The shadow is 90% pure gold. We are taught to fear the shadow, to treat it as the villain within. But what if I told you that the shadow is not a pit of shame, but a mine of buried treasure, not just where you are broken, but where you are whole, wild, and waiting to be reclaimed? The shadow is not evil. It is exiled potential. It is the part of you that learned, long ago, that it was not safe to be fully alive. Your anger was called rude, your joy too loud, your honesty made others uncomfortable, so you dimmed your fire. You silenced your song, you clipped your wings to be loved, but what is suppressed does not vanish. It retreats into the unconscious, waiting, yearning to be seen again. Every time you say yes when you mean no, a piece of you disappears into the shadow. Every time you swallow your truth, force a smile, betray your own boundaries to keep the peace, you trade a piece of gold for a moment of approval. And yet this lost part of you is not gone, it waits. In your dreams, in your triggers, in the moments when you feel inexplicably angry or sad or small, that ache you can't explain, that's your unlived life calling to you. When I said the shadow is 90% pure gold, I meant this. It holds the vitality you buried to survive. Your rage, it is your boundary screaming to be honored. Your envy, a compass pointing to what your soul desires. Your fear, the raw edge of transformation, not a wall but a doorway. The gold is not outside you. It is what you rejected in yourself, and to retrieve it, you must go into the dark. Not to destroy what you find, but to bow before it, to say, you are part of me, I see you now. The irony is this, the self you've been trying to become already exists. It's just buried beneath everything you were told not to be. So let the shadow speak. Listen. Let your wildness return, not recklessly, but consciously. Let your honesty rise, not as cruelty, but as clarity. Let your true voice emerge, not to please, but to live. This is not rebellion, it is resurrection. To reclaim the shadow is to gather the gold scattered through your inner underworld, piece by piece, until you shine, not with borrowed light, but your own. And in this act of wholeness, the world does not just gain a healed version of you. It meets, for the first time, the real you. 3. Projection is the mirror of the shadow. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. When you recoil from someone's arrogance, when you bristle at their neediness, when you feel a sudden, disproportionate surge of judgment or envy, pause. That moment is sacred. That discomfort is not random. It is a mirror, and in it you are not seeing them, you are seeing you. This is the mystery of projection, the unconscious act of casting parts of ourselves onto others, like shadows stretching across the walls of our relationships. It is not intentional, it is protective. What the ego cannot bear to hold within, it quietly assigns to the world around us, the loud friend, the selfish sibling, the manipulative lover. Perhaps they are exactly as they seem, but often they are also carriers of our unseen self, of our disowned hunger for attention, of our buried rage, of our unmet longing for love or power or truth. We are not offended by the world. We are offended by what the world reflects back to us. And projection is not just negative. It lives in our admiration too. When you idealize someone, place them on a pedestal, whisper to yourself, I could never be like them. You are not seeing them clearly. You are witnessing your own potential through the fog of self-doubt. You do not long for what is foreign. You long for what is familiar but forgotten. That's why the ones who inspire us and the ones who trigger us are often the same. They hold the pieces of ourselves we've abandoned. To do shadow work is to gather those pieces, not to blame the world, but to reclaim ourselves. It is to see each trigger, each obsession, each love, and each hatred as a breadcrumb leading us back to the lost chambers of our soul. This requires radical honesty. Instead of saying, they are so arrogant, we ask, where in me have I been taught to suppress my pride? Instead of whispering, I hate how needy they are, we ask, when did I learn that my own needs were a burden? And when we find the answers, they liberate us. No longer at the mercy of others' behaviors, we begin to see clearly, both them and ourselves. We withdraw the projections, we call back the shadows, we stop expecting the world to carry what is ours to own. This is the alchemy of the psyche. By reclaiming our projections, we reclaim our power, and in doing so, we see others not as distorted reflections, but as fellow souls, walking their own path through the same holy fire. You are not what you see in others, but what you cannot see in yourself, you will see in them. Own it, reclaim it, become whole, for the shadow guards the path to the self. There is no light without shadow, and no psychic wholeness without imperfection. The journey to the self is not upward. It is downward, into the roots, into the dark, into the forgotten depths of the psyche. The treasure you seek, the authentic self, the soul, the wholeness you feel called to, does not lie in transcendence. It lies in the place you fear to look. It lies in the shadow. This is the paradox of the inner path. The very thing you've been avoiding contains the doorway to your becoming. The shadow is not a mistake. It is not a flaw to be eradicated or a demon to be cast out. It is the guardian of your soul's gate. Like the dragon of myth, it protects something precious, your unlived life, your authenticity, your creative fire. And it will not yield until you prove worthy of its secret. To walk the path of individuation is to approach that dragon, not with weapons, but with reverence, to say, I see you, I honor you, I am ready to meet myself. But be warned, this descent is not a metaphor, it is a psychic initiation. It is the death of illusion, the disintegration of the false self, the unraveling of everything you believed made you good or worthy or acceptable. You will face your rage, your jealousy, your fear of being ordinary. You will meet the parts of yourself that you exiled long ago, the child who is too loud, too wild, too much. You will weep not because you are weak, but because you are finally telling the truth. The descent is not punishment, it is purification, and the shadow does not attack. It reveals, it shows you how you've betrayed yourself to be accepted, how you've hidden your fire to be loved, how you've performed your life rather than lived it. The shadow does not lie, it brings into the light what your ego cannot bear to see, but if you stay, if you withstand the shame, the grief, the unbearable honesty, something miraculous happens, the shadow softens. It no longer guards the gate, it opens it, and beyond that gate you find not a new identity, but something ancient and eternal, the self, the center of your being, the source of meaning, vitality, and peace that needs no performance. That simply is. This is the great secret. You do not become yourself by becoming better. You become yourself by becoming whole. And wholeness is not light without shadow. It is light with shadow, integrated. The dragon you feared is not your enemy. It is your power, unclaimed, misunderstood, waiting. Dare to descend. Dare to embrace what you were taught to run from. For only in the dark does the true self begin to shine. 5. The shadow cannot be destroyed. Only integrated, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The modern mind, driven by conquest, wants to overcome the shadow, to banish it, destroy it, transcend it. 5. The shadow cannot be destroyed. Only integrated, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The modern mind, driven by conquest, wants to overcome the shadow, to banish it, destroy it, transcend it. But this is a grave misunderstanding. The shadow is not an intruder, it is a part of you, and what belongs to you cannot be exiled without cost. You cannot kill what lives within you. You can only turn toward it, listen, and begin the sacred work of relationship. The shadow is ancient. It formed when you were young, when certain emotions were labeled bad, when parts of your nature were judged unworthy, when your soul, wild and whole, was asked to perform, to conform, to behave. In those moments whatever could not be accepted was buried, not gone, only hidden, not silent, only unheard. The shadow became the unseen sculptor of your life. It whispered through your reactivity, yourself, sabotage, your projections, your compulsions. And still, you tried to be good, to stay in the light, unaware that your disowned parts were dragging behind you like a wounded animal, bleeding into your relationships, your choices, your dreams. But the path of healing does not lie in perfection. It lies in integration. Through dreams, the shadow speaks in symbol and metaphor, images that disturb or enchant, showing you the unlived stories of your soul. Through active imagination, you converse with your inner figures, the angry child, the envious twin, the wild woman, the cruel judge, and realize they are not monsters but messengers. Through inner dialogue, you begin to differentiate, this is me, and this is also me, and slowly something shifts. What was once feared becomes familiar. What once hijacked you now collaborates with you. The rage that once lashed out becomes discernment. The envy becomes aspiration. The lust becomes vitality. The part of you that sought destruction begins to protect what is sacred. This is the miracle of shadow integration, the alchemy of turning lead into gold, not by purifying, but by embracing. Not by removing, but by remembering. You begin to carry your shadow not as a burden, but as a companion, not as shame, but as power. Your presence deepens, your voice becomes rooted, your compassion expands, because you have faced the unfaceable within yourself. And perhaps most importantly, you stop needing others to carry what is yours. You no longer need to judge others to avoid your truth. You no longer need to fix the world to escape your inner chaos. You simply live, honestly, wholly, imperfectly human. Do not strive to be without a shadow. Strive instead to know it, befriend it, and walk with it as a partner on your path to the self, for only through integration does the psyche become whole, and only in wholeness do you become free. The shadow returns with violence when ignored. What you resist persists. What you deny controls you from within. The shadow does not disappear because you choose not to see it. It does not vanish with age, success, or even conscious intention to be good. No, what is repressed does not die. It waits in the forgotten corridors of your psyche, in the basement of your soul, in the unlit corners of your memory, and it does not sleep. It observes, it stores, it collects every uncried tear, every swallowed truth, every no you were too afraid to say. And when you least expect it, when life pushes you to the edge, when your mask begins to crack, when you are too exhausted to pretend, it returns, not as a whisper, but as a scream. It returns in neurosis, those inner conflicts that tear you apart from within, where logic cannot resolve the war your spirit is fighting. It returns in addiction, the compulsive hunger to fill the void that repression created, the craving for relief from a truth too painful to name. It returns in depression, the soul's cry that something essential has been lost, something vital has been silenced, buried, or denied. You might not recognize it at first. You'll say, "I'm tired," or "it's just stress." You'll medicate, distract, overwork, or numb it away. But it grows louder. The shadow does not tolerate long exile. It does not accept banishment, for it is not your enemy. It is your mirror, and when it is ignored, it grows wild. It breaks boundaries, it erupts. In Jungian psychology, this eruption is known as the return of the repressed. It comes in the form of rage you didn't know you carried, in words you can't believe you spoke, in actions that terrify even you. It comes when a parent suddenly explodes at a child for merely spilling juice. It comes when a partner sabotages love because they fear intimacy more than loneliness. It comes when a leader falls, not from external attack, but from their own unresolved darkness. You see, the shadow does not negotiate. If you will not meet it in reverence, it will demand your attention through chaos. It is as sacred as it is dangerous, and like all sacred things, it requires humility. When we ignore the shadow, we make ourselves vulnerable to its possession. This is not myth or metaphor. It is psychological fact. Unconscious content, when unexamined, overtakes the ego. You say, "I don't know what came over me," but something did. Something within you took the reins. Jung warned of this many times. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You'll think you're choosing your life, but it's the wounded child within you doing the choosing. You'll think you're angry at your partner, but it's your suppressed grief masquerading as rage. You'll think the world is against you, when in truth, you've declared war on yourself. And so, the great invitation is not to run from the shadow, but to turn toward it, before it becomes a wildfire. Meet it in your dreams, where it first appears in symbols, monsters, animals, strangers, sometimes even in the ones you love. Listen to the stories your subconscious tells. Do not dismiss them. That is your psyche begging to be seen. Meet it in your triggers, the emotional overreactions that point to a deeper, hidden wound. Ask not, "Why are they doing this to me?" Ask instead, "Why does this hurt so much? What memory is this echoing? What part of me is unloved here?" Meet it in silence, sit with it, write to it, paint it, speak with it, give it form, so it no longer needs to possess you in order to exist. This is not comfortable work. It is not glamorous. It is raw, terrifying, holy. But those who have walked into their own darkness become luminous. They do not cast shadows on others because they have owned their own. They do not project blame because they have made peace with their pain. They no longer fear chaos because they have found the order hidden within it. So if life feels chaotic, if your emotions are erupting, if you are drowning in compulsions, rage, sadness, or numbness, pause. It may not be a breakdown, it may be the shadow, knocking, not to destroy you, but to reclaim you, to make you whole, for the shadow is not what makes you bad. It is what makes you real, and only in embracing it do you finally meet your truest self. 7. Shadow work is the journey of a lifetime. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. There is a great illusion in the modern psyche that healing is an event, a destination, a single thunderclap of awakening after which all becomes clear. But the soul does not operate in such straight lines. It is not a machine with switches, but a labyrinth, a living mystery that unfolds over time, through pain, through beauty, through the mundane moments of life. Shadow work is not a one-time confrontation with darkness. It is the lifelong conversation between your ego and your soul. It begins not with heroic triumph, but with quiet noticing, a pang of jealousy, a sharp word you didn't mean, a strange dream that lingers. These small fractures are invitations. Every phase of life reveals new fragments of the unconscious. As a child, the shadow might appear as fear or silence. As a young adult, it might wear the mask of rebellion or shame. In middle life, it may take the form of numbness, addiction, despair. And in old age, it may surface as regret, or an aching sense of unlived life. The shadow evolves as you evolve. It is not static. It mirrors your wounds, yes, but also your power. The parts you deny are often the very keys to your wholeness. Your rage hides your fire. Your envy hides your longing. Your shame hides your truth, and your fear, it often points directly to your freedom. But this reclamation does not happen in a single moment. It happens slowly, painfully at times, tenderly at others. Through every heartbreak, every failure, every deep love that doesn't last, every relationship becomes a mirror, every conflict a compass pointing inward, every dream a coded message from the soul. To do shadow work is to develop a relationship with the unknown inside you, to sit with what is ugly, irrational, inconvenient, and ask it, "What are you here to teach me?" It means dropping the armor of certainty and entering into dialogue with what you would rather not see. This is why the process never ends. You are never done, because you are not a problem to solve. You are a being to unfold, and as you unfold, you will shed layer after layer of false identity. You will discover that what you thought was you was often only your adaptation, your mask. The good student, the strong one, the people pleaser, the achiever, these identities were necessary for survival, but they are not your essence. Shadow work asks you to gently peel them back, not with judgment, but with love. So you may find the real voice underneath, the real self waiting beneath decades of pretending. This path is not glamorous. It will not always make you feel powerful. Often, it will make you feel more uncertain, more tender, more human, but this humility is the seed of inner wisdom, to say, "I do not fully know myself. I am still learning, still becoming." That is the beginning of true maturity, so do not rush. Do not seek a final cure for your humanity. Instead, walk this path with reverence. Let every tear baptize you. Let every dark night refine you. Let every lesson draw you closer, not to perfection, but to authenticity. Remember, your wounds are not a detour, they are the doorway, and each time you step through, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You gather the parts once left behind, you stitch together a soul from brokenness. And you begin, again, the sacred work of becoming whole. For this slow, steady embrace of the hidden self is the true journey of a lifetime. Triggers are teachers. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. To be triggered is to be touched at the deepest level, not by the present moment, but by a wound that still lives inside you. It is not the comment, the action, or the person that hurts. It is the echo, the ancient bruise beneath the surface being struck again. Most people run from their triggers. They blame the other. They shut down. They erupt. But in doing so, they miss the gold, because triggers are not signs of weakness. They are summons. They are invitations from the soul to examine what is still unresolved, unhealed, unseen. If the shadow is the unconscious self, then triggers are its voice. Raw, uncomfortable, honest. A trigger is your psyche whispering, "This pain has roots. Pay attention here. There is something about this moment that is not about this moment. You see, no one can truly trigger you unless they've touched something that already lives within. If someone insults you and it slides off your back, it means nothing was activated. But if it pierces you deep, disproportionate, reactive, it is not just about them. It is about you. Perhaps the way they dismissed you reminds you of a parent who did the same. Perhaps their success triggers your own buried shame about not being enough. Perhaps their silence mirrors your own abandonment wound. Whatever it is sacred, not because pain is holy, but because self-awareness is, and the more consciously you engage your triggers, the less power they have. Instead of exploding or collapsing, you begin to observe, what part of me is hurting right now? Where have I felt this before? What does this moment reveal about the story I still carry? This is the beginning of emotional alchemy, turning reaction into reflection, turning chaos into clarity, turning pain into purpose. It is not easy. It requires honesty so sharp it may sting. It requires letting go of blame and turning inward, not to punish yourself, but to reclaim your power, because until you own the wound, the world will keep activating it. Until you name the pattern, life will keep repeating it. Until you meet the child inside who is still afraid, still unheard, still aching, you will project that pain outward onto lovers, friends, even strangers. But once you choose to listen, really listen, your triggers become your greatest teachers, not because they feel good, but because they are real. They are not illusions, they are truth, unprocessed, unintegrated, but entirely yours. And truth, no matter how painful, is always a guide. So the next time you are triggered, pause, not to suppress, not to scold yourself, but to witness, to breathe, to ask gently, what am I being shown about myself right now? What in me is still waiting to be healed? This is the path of inner maturity. It is not about avoiding discomfort. It is about using discomfort as a doorway, because the psyche will always seek healing, and it will whisper through discomfort until you are ready to respond with love. Not for the world outside, but for the unloved places within, and that is the work that transforms you.